Here is the Channel 5 Total News, today's major news developments at home and abroad, and the complete weather and sports highlights. First, the news brought to you by Freed, 2nd East at Social Hall Avenue, where every 60 minutes somebody buys a car. Now, here with the news, Dick Norse.
And good evening, everyone. Well, tonight it happened in Salt Lake City. One of those big commercial airliners crashed with all the intensity and tragedy that always seems to happen somewhere else. Tonight at 5:50, a United Airlines 727 jetliner, as it came in for a landing, crashed upon impact and skidded to a stop in a fiery heap. It's still too early to speculate as to the definite cause of the crash, although we will have an eyewitness report. 89 were aboard the plane, 83 passengers and 6 crew members. At the time of this report, 44 have been confirmed as having survived this tragic crash. For the most part, the plane stayed intact, but was virtually destroyed by the fire, which ran rampant through the interior of the plane immediately after it hit. The heat from the fire was so intense, it melted the metal on the roof of the plane, exposing it to the outside air. KSL Sports Director Paul James was there only moments after the tragic crash. Here now is his report.
Dick, we have an eyewitness report to that plane crash tonight. By some strange quirk of fate, Norm Nelson here had a new VHF radio put in his car, and tonight he decided to drive out to the Salt Lake Airport, park next to the runway, and monitor the airplanes, pick up the communications as they came in. Norm, can you tell us what you saw at about 5:45 tonight?
Paul, the first indication I had that there was a 727 landing was that I heard on departure control was vectoring an Electra that had just taken off, and he told him he was vectoring him around the 727, which was on final approach, and the pilot who was flying the plane was on visual flight rules at that time. And I looked up out of my car and I could see the plane coming out to my right. You could see his navigation lights. There were no flames at that time. And the thing that struck me odd as I saw the plane was that its rate of descent was extremely steep. It was coming down like this, whereas normally they make a much more shallow rate of descent. And as he started his flare at the bottom of his descent prior to landing, it looked like perhaps he might have started his flare too late because the plane simply continued right into the ground. And upon contact with the ground, I could hear the crash. I was about a mile away, and there were flames. The fuel tanks and the wings undoubtedly had been ruptured, and it shot down the runway and finally came to a stop, probably about 800 or 900 yards further on. Then the flames really broke out, and I could see the people leaping out of the aircraft silhouetted against the flames. It was quite a sight, one that I never want to see again.
It's certainly one that I never want to see again. As we arrived on the scene tonight, the flame was still the plane was still burning furiously, and I would speculate that most of the victims in the plane tonight were overcome by smoke. As Morgan Skinner and I arrived there at the side, right here at this very spot of the United Airlines plane, the ambulance crews began hollering to make way to get some stretchers in there, and I watched as it appeared a pretty young stewardess, her face completely black with smoke and her face burned, was hauled by me on a stretcher. Another man who appeared to be Oriental, completely burned, was brought out on a stretcher, and then a third man with his shirt burned right off his back was brought by me. Those are 3 victims, the last 3 out of the plane. It appeared that most of the casualties were in the front of the plane. I talked to one fireman after. He said they were still strapped in their seats and they were just charred skeletons. Dick?
A crew of nearly a dozen KSL newsmen went into action immediately after news of this tragic crash was flashed by local police agencies. A camera team was among the first to reach the scene of the wreckage as it lay blazing midway down the long jet runway at the Salt Lake Municipal Airport. Another crew was dispatched to local hospitals to supply KSL News Central with as much information as possible as soon as it was made available. One of the hospital teams included Wes Bowen, and he talked with one of the survivors of the crash.